Hello everyone, welcome to this video. In this video, we're going to be taking a look at how to perform or how to find hidden directories and files or hidden files and directories with Nmap, more specifically using the Nmap scripting engine. So this is a continuation of the HTTP enumeration section. So we've already taken a look at how to perform HTTP method enumeration, so where we were able to detect what methods are currently supported on the server. Now let's take a look at how to enumerate various hidden files and directories that may not be directly accessible through the web server. Now in this video, we're going to be using Metasploitable 2 as our target, primarily because it has a running web server that has very interesting directories that will help me showcase some of the functionality of this particular script. So this is no different than performing subdirectory enumeration or brute forcing using a tool like derb or darbbuster, except in this case Nmap or the Nmap scripting engine with this particular script, or in conjunction with the http-enum script, will use its own fingerprint file, which again you can customize based on what you require. But again, getting back to the topic on hand, if we want to discover any hidden files or directories on the web server that might be important or might reveal important information to us, we can easily do that using the http-enum script. So what I'm going to do is, since we're targeting a Metasploitable 2, I'll just perform a simple service version detection scan on the target. So again, we'll use the T5 timing template and we'll say 192.168.1.138. That is the IP address of the Metasploitable 2 box on my local network. And I'll hit enter. So this will just give us an idea of the services that are running. And the reason I'm doing this is to set up a premise so that you're not confused going in, right? So we'll wait for the scan to complete here. There we are, the scan is complete, and we can see that on port 80 we have Apache running. So if we try and access the web server on port 80, so 192.168.1.138, as you would, right, you can see that we have various applications. So these are all vulnerable web applications that have been set up, and we have twiki, we have phpMyAdmin, Motility, damn vulnerable web application, and a webdav directory, which is not listing anything at all. Right, so again, we can see that we have access to pretty much all the web apps here, but let's see if there's anything hidden that we can't see on the surface that might be potentially interesting or that might give us very important information. So to do that, I'll say Nmap and we'll say SV, right? We want to perform service version detection. We'll specify the port here and we'll say script is http-enum. That's it. And we then specify the target 192.168.1.138, right? So that is 138, hit enter. And that will actually perform the scan, and let's see whether we have any interesting directories. We should have a few. So there we are, the scan is complete, and we have TikiWiki, which we know exists. We then have an interesting test page. Let's see whether that reveals anything important. And then we have PHP info, which is very important. This gives us the PHP configuration that is currently on the system, and it may divulge any other it may divulge some other useful information, like the system that's running the Linux kernel that is currently running. Again, that is very useful for a penetration tester. We then have phpMyAdmin, which we pretty much had over here. We also have a doc directory, which again, you can see it's a closed ended, which tells us potentially interesting directory with directory listing. All right, so that means we can potentially have a directory listing vulnerability here. Or we can potentially access various directories on the system that we shouldn't be able to access. So it's pretty much an unsecured or misconfigured Apache server. So let's see and let's test out the directories that like test that were found but are not directly available or are not visible directly by the user on the web application. So if we say test, right, so this takes us to a directory listing under test, and if we try and go up, that takes us back to the web app. So if we go back, you can see we have a test output directory that lists out some logging files, which again, I'm not going to cover this because this course is not focused on web app pen testing. So that's the test directory that might be potentially important. We then have PHP info, right, which we can then say PHP info, that is PHP info, like so, and we hit enter, and there we are. It gives us the PHP version, which is 5.24, and it's running on Ubuntu 5.10. So that's quite an old version of Ubuntu, but again, as I said, this operating system is set up to be intentionally vulnerable to showcase some of these really interesting vulnerabilities. So you can see we have the system information, which tells us we're running a Linux kernel 2.6.24. So through that, the penetration tester can then have an idea of the system he's dealing with and how he can target it better. We have a virtual directory support disabled, and then it gives us the directory for the ini files, which is very interesting, and then the various configuration settings that have been set for this particular version of PHP running on the web server. And this can be this is very important because it can actually display whether there are any misconfigured PHP options here that an attacker can potentially exploit, right? And there we are. So that's interesting. So PHP info displays the information, and we then have doc, which again gives us a potential directory listing. Also icons does that. So let's open up doc here. So I'll say doc, and we open that up, and voila, we get a directory listing of the doc file of the doc directory, where we can then access all the doc files here. So we have all the utilities. I'm guessing this is some sort of a this is of course documentation, and then we try and go up, it takes us there. So we have directory listing enabled on the server, which is extremely dangerous. And then we have the icons directory, which we'll try and access now. So you say icons, hit enter, and it again gives us directory listing, and then we have various icons here. So we click on one of these, this box. We can take a look at some of the readme files here. So this tells us these are just public domain icons, so nothing important there. Let's see what this gives us. So yeah, it just looks like we have a bunch of icons that are being used by the system or by a particular web application. We have a readme file here, which again tells us that this is just these are just public domain icons. We try and go back up, and that tells us that it essentially takes us directly to the root of the web server, where we have all the other web applications that are listed publicly. However, as you can see, the test page was not listed publicly, PHP info was not listed, and then of course the doc directory was not listed, and we're able to enumerate that information. So we can find pretty useful information from our targets using the http-enum script. As I said, based on your target, you're going to find interesting results, or if the server is properly secured, or the web application is properly secured and you don't have misconfigurations, then it's pretty much going to be, it's just going to list out what the actual fingerprint file thinks is important. So again, that is how to perform file and directory enumeration, or to find hidden files and directories using Nmap, using the http-enum script. So that's going to be it for this video, and I'll be seeing you in the next video.